Hi everyone. I'm making this video for students in my English 168 Criminal Justice Writing course. I received an email from a student today and I realized I had made an error on the textbook. I had been referring to the old edition of the book, and when in fact this is the correct edition, just the facts, and it is the fourth edition. It is by Michael Biggs, and it was you know updated in 2012. So this is the correct book, and this is the only book that you will need for this course. And of course, you can purchase it through the WCCC bookstore. You can buy it through Amazon or Half.com or Barnes and Noble or any number of sites. But we will be using it through this course. Now, what I also wanted to mention to you is if you've taken college writing at WCCC, you have used the version of this book, the Brief Penguin Handbook with Exercises. This may not be the most current edition, but you probably still have this book. If you do, I would strongly encourage you to, refer to it, because they have a number of helpful tips and suggestions, but especially tab 7, effective style and language. And style is how you write, whether you're formal, semi-formal, or how you convey your terms. And even your tone can be if you're upset or angry or matter of fact or whatnot, but that focuses on that. And even in terms of language, that is a really, really big factor for criminal justice writing, because when you write an affidavit of probable cause and you are charging someone, you can't say, for example, I observed a number of beer cans in the back of the vehicle. If you write, I picked up a total of 16-ounce Coors Light beer cans that were cool to touch, which indicates that they had just consumed them recently and they were in the vehicle. So, that is specific. So your language and your word choice makes a difference. Even if you use general words like I notice a lot of, or there were a few things that concern me, that is really, really general. You have to be a bit more specific and a bit more accurate. I had a student some years back named Justin Scalzo, who is a canine police officer for the city of Jeannette, and also Magistrate District Judge Joe DeMarcus, who also teaches at WCCC in the evenings and also teaches in the Municipal Police Officers Academy. He gave a really, really good example. There was a hit and run case that took place, and it was this woman's car, and she had another car that was parked. And so they were trying to find out who caused the damage. And so Justin was able to find the vehicle that did the damage. And so he investigated and he took pictures and paint samples and so on. And so through circumstantial evidence, he was able to prove that this woman did in fact hit this other vehicle and cause damage. And she was trying to claim that she was away in Pittsburgh that evening. She worked as a dancer in a club and she wasn't there. She believes her friend used her vehicle, but she wasn't sure. Well, this woman was 4'10" or 5 feet tall, not very tall, and her friend was 6 feet 2. And so then Joe had to take pictures inside the vehicle to show the position of the seat and so on. And he's probably 5'10", and he showed that he couldn't even sit behind the seat. So clearly this person was driving the car. So sometimes, through your writing and your detail, Joe DeMarcus always says it's like connecting the dots. And Detective Tom Moran says the same thing, that when you do the writing, you have to show it's just not the single point, but it's a series of points that shows that something, took place, or an event or incident happened. And then they also, in this book, they have understanding grammar, understanding punctuation and mechanics, and so on. If you don't wish to get that book, you can also get this really inexpensively. It's called the Prentice Hall Reference Guide for Professional Writing. And under Amazon, but particularly under half.com and some of these other websites, you can buy this very inexpensively, maybe $10 or something. But it's good to have a handbook on your desk, whether you're at school or when you're at work or whatnot, so you can find helpful information. Also wanted to mention to you, there's a really good site that I often refer students to. It's owl.english.purdue.edu, which is the online writing lab through Purdue University. And just the same thing like a handbook. They have business writing, they have, resumes, how to use different types of punctuation, such as the colon and the semicolon, and sentence level errors, and all, if you have to do documentation, they have all that. But I'm a big fan of that online, writing lab through Purdue University. Furthermore, through WCCC, there is our library site. And on the library site, there are databases. Now, the biggest, most helpful databases to you in a criminal justice writing course are EBSCOhost and LexisNexis. LexisNexis is a database that's used by every law firm, district attorney's offices, police departments, and so on, but it really covers case law and legal and medical issues. Now, EBSCOhost is a more general purpose type of site, but if you want to find useful, helpful information, that's a good place to look. Obviously, when you look in Google, that's okay. There's no problem there. There's another part of Google called Google Scholar if you wanted to find other types of publications, that are available as far as that goes. Whatever you do, if you have to look something up, don't use Wikipedia because it's not considered to be a reliable, reputable source, because anybody can contribute to Wikipedia. WCCC has access to an online encyclopedia, Encyclopedia Britannica, and if you have to do a paper for, say, like a criminal justice class or sociology or psychology, why I like Britannica is it has encyclopedia articles, but it also has excellent web links. It has periodicals, which is magazines, newspapers, and like journals and trade publications. So we'll have those. It'll have images. So it covers a wide base and a wide array of source information. So just wanted to mention some of those resources to you. I also wanted to let you know through WCCC, if you need to speak to a reference librarian, you can always call the 724-925-4100 number, and we have 2 reference librarians available during the daytime, and there's one available in the evening. Now, if you have other questions, say it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and you needed to find out an answer to a question, of course you could use Google or some of the other sites. But if you're having a problem and you need help, there's a website called Ask Here PA. And so it's a site where they have a 24-hour librarian available through the state of Pennsylvania, and he or she is available to answer your questions. I've had more than a few students that have used them and found them to be very, very good. So it's your tax dollars at work. Now, also, I wanted to mention to you through the college is we have counselors that you can meet with if you want to transfer, or if you want to find out, maybe I should be in another facet of criminal justice. That's available. We have a person, Sherry Nolan, John Amariak, that can help you with your resume, a cover letter, a portfolio. They can help you to do interviews. And it's very, very helpful, but it's a service that is provided through the college. Also at the college at CareerLink, which is right behind the Business and Industry Center, that's provided through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And it's the same thing. It's helped you to look for jobs, to produce a resume, and other services, but they're very, very helpful. And they figured that they might as well be here at WCCC in Youngwood, and then they could provide services for people that are here for the college, or it's a very convenient, localized area. So I just wanted to mention that to you, and remind you of that. In my in-class course, and I probably mentioned this in my first video, but I will mention it again to you. Judge Jim, God, I'm having the magistrate Jim Falcon. I don't know why I was drawing a mental blank there. He's right behind the college. He is really, really great to students. I go to see him every semester, but I just had a bit of a lapse there. But I take students there, and when I have this class on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have court day, and you are allowed to go in and observe court in action, okay? You can do that there. The other magistrates' offices, they certainly don't mind, but he's very friendly and very helpful, to students. But what I wanted to tell you is at the magistrate level, they call them district magisterial justices. And like I said, Joe DeMarcus is one, Roger Eccles and Norveld is another. Many of them are former police officers. Some of them are lawyers. Anyone can actually apply to become a magistrate, but most people that are magistrates that do it real well and pass the exam, most of them have law enforcement or legal backgrounds. Some don't, but the majority of them do. So I just wanted to mention that. But you'll notice when you go to the magistrate, what they have to do at that level is present a prima facie case. And basically, if it's a homicide or a serious matter, all they're really doing is presenting some of the evidence. They don't have to go through everything. And if there's enough evidence to hold the person or take it to the next level, then it will go up to the Court of Common Pleas. Now, for other matters, like traffic tickets and misdemeanors and summary offenses and so on, many of them are adjudicated at the district magistrate level. It's what you would really call a filtering system. They have the assistant district attorney that comes down, and then also attorneys that represent the clients. And so, like I said, many of the cases are handled at that level, which is good because if you had too many cases going to the Court of Common Pleas, the system would be, clogged. But it's fascinating to observe some of the cases that take place. Last year, when we were there, with students, there was a nurse from a local hospital who was charged with a DUI. And so she had to testify, and one of the students recognized her as a coworker. And typically, what happens with the DUIs, though, is they put you on this fast track program. And so then, if you don't get another DUI or get in trouble, then it's taken off of your record. But if you do get another one, then it's even more problematic. But anyhow, we observed some of those. And a number of different cases, they had truck drivers that tried to go through the easy pass lane without a toll, one of those items that you put on your dashboard. And they also covered up their license plate. And one person was from another state, so they had to come here from another state to go to the magistrate to get that handled. So they cover, like I said, a variety of, cases. There was a case, too, that we saw that this man stole an ambulance in Allegheny County, and he caused all sorts of damage. Then he wrecked in some cars in Rostraver, and so he had charges against him in Allegheny and Westmoreland County. He didn't have an attorney, but Judge Falcon had to tell him, is that you have the right to have an attorney. If you want to represent yourself, that's fine, but you have to realize that the charges against you, once they're adjudicated, you can't go back and say, I changed my mind on it. Now, when you go up to the Court of Common Pleas, as I said, that those cases tend to be of a more serious nature. With there, it's the beyond a reasonable doubt. And the point about it is defense attorneys only have to show that there is reasonable doubt that something didn't happen. And so that's, like I said, that's the difference with it. But the point that I really wanted to tell you is that if you become a police officer, a municipal police officer, a state trooper, a detective, or whatever you do in any facet of law enforcement, a probation officer or whatnot, you're going to be working with the same judges, the same attorneys, the same people in the criminal justice system. They will get to know you, really, really well. And the point is, I mean, sometimes you're going to lose cases because the evidence isn't strong enough, or a judge decides a certain way and doesn't agree with the way that you presented the case. The most important point to keep in mind, though, is just to be honest. If you are arresting someone and they were resisting arrest, and you had to punch them and then subdue them and tackle them and take them down, write that. I mean, just say that. It's easier to tell the truth earlier on than to say, well, this happened. So just be honest from the start, and it's much, much easier for you. And Tom Moran is a detective for Westmoreland County. He was telling our class last year that he was involved with a case, and the attorney was from out of town. And so the attorney was asking all these questions, trying to undermine Tom's credibility. And Judge Rita Hathaway basically called the attorney up for a sidebar and said, Tom is honest, he's credible, don't go in this direction, this is a problem. So that's what he said, and he also was involved in a case with a magistrate, and I mentioned the other day, down in North Huntington, and some police officers down there. And so they were looking for things that he did that were problematic, and they couldn't find anything because he's a straight shooting type of person. So when you're in law enforcement, whether it's law enforcement or Homeland Security, or if you work with some facet of the federal government, be honest and be direct, and you won't have any problems. So, and that's, like I said, that's a very, very important point, to keep in mind. I am going to send you an article from the Latrobe Bulletin. Latrobe couple ordered to trial. And I just read this in the newspaper today. And this is a good article because certainly as a police officer, investigator, you might have some questions about this particular article as far as how the charges were filed and whatnot. I wanted to tell you 2 points that are really, really important, okay? The first one that I wanted to tell you is, if you're in law enforcement, you're going to have to be informed on a pretty broad array of topics. And one way to be well informed is just to read the daily newspaper. If you can, read more than one newspaper, watch the nightly news, but that helps. One of our best sales reps from Pearson Longman, his name is Ray Meesing. I went out to lunch with him one day, and he had 5 newspapers in his car. He had, the Tribune Review, he had the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the USA Today, he had the Wall Street Journal, and then he had, he lives down in Washington, PA, so he had that local newspaper. But my point to you is, you're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have conversations with people, and you're going to have people relax a little bit with you. And the way to do that, whether you're in sales and you're in law enforcement or any people-oriented profession, is to be able to break the ice and have something to talk about. If somebody's a Steelers fan, you'll be able to talk about that, or the Penguins. Or if somebody likes movies or somebody likes something else, you have to have a conversation with them. And small talk leads to more conversation, but you really want to make the person relax and feel, at ease with you, because that's your bread and butter in law enforcement, getting people to tell you information, that happened, what the situation was. And the reality is, in some situations, people just get caught up in the moment and get caught up in the situation. And, it's helpful for them, though, to basically to be truthful from the start, because they'll get a more favorable, hearing when they're in court. But also, too, it makes them feel better. And if there are victims involved, it's better all around. Kelly Hammers, who is an assistant district attorney for Westmoreland County, she told a class a story. She came to our class one time. Randy Slagle got her to come in, and one thing that she said is she was dealing with this couple, okay, and basically they had drug charges, but she was also getting some other information from them. But she said to them, if you are dishonest in any part of this process, and when you go to court and whatnot, the deal that we're giving you is off. And so what happened is they go to court and they're changing their story, and then they just said the county no longer offered a deal to them. So, as I said, when you're dealing with individuals, sometimes they won't want to come out with the truth, or even the truth may be embarrassing. But the thing about it is, you want to try to let them know that you're willing to listen to their side of the story. And even if it takes a couple of hours to do it, that's just the way that it goes. But that's part of the process. That's something that some employers say today, that people have a hard time just sitting down and having a conversation. Many people feel relaxed sitting in front of a computer and typing or texting or so on. But to be able to sit down and have a conversation is important. Now, the other part that's so important is your writing skills, because, if you file a search warrant, and Joe DeMarcus says this often, he said, I can live next to a drug house, and I know that there's activity in that house. However, if you file a search warrant, which is a serious matter because you're invading the person's right to privacy, you have to put down in the four corners of the search warrant what evidence you have to search that house, or to search this vehicle, or whatnot. And so you have to explain what it is. And later in the semester, I'll show you this. In the search warrant at the very top, you can say, my name is Detective Michael Ritzik. I have 30 years of law enforcement experience. I have these degrees. You can say what your law enforcement experience is. I've filed 150 search warrants. I've been involved in these numbers of cases, but it's a standard block information, and the magistrate can, consider that. In 99% of cases, the magistrate is going to approve it, but from time to time, there may need to be a court of common pleas judge that approves a search warrant, but it happens, more rarely. But this article that I was talking about, this Latrobe couple ordered to trial, couple points about the article that I wanted to refer you to is there's a quote in there, or a comment. Cicchetti asked Wigan whether any other items, O sheets, address books, or firearms were taken as evidence. So if you notice, they're using dashes, okay? And dashes emphasize the information within the dashes, and they place a stronger emphasis on it. But it's a nice, clean way to include information that you want to develop. And if you put in parentheses, it de-emphasizes it, and commas is okay, but, like I said, if you use dashes, that's what it is. Now, the other point that I wanted to tell you about when you use quotes is you can introduce a quote at the beginning. So, like Chief Wally Lyons from the Greensburg Police Department, I don't even know if he's there any longer, said, and then you can have the quote. Or Sheriff Jonathan Held of Westmoreland County commented. So if you have the person making the statement at the beginning, and then you have the quote, well, then you have more emphasis on the speaker, okay? Now, if you have a quote in the speaker in the middle, then you're placing equal emphasis on the quote and then on the speaker. And then if you have the quote and then you have the speaker at the end, well, then you're placing more emphasis on the quote and less emphasis on the speaker. Now, the other point that I wanted to tell you when you use quotes in writing is you can use a stronger emphasis with your quote, with your verb, a neutral emphasis, or a weaker emphasis. If you use verbs such as stressed, indicated, retorted, emphasized, those verbs, those are stronger. So if you said Dr. Cyril Wecht, forensic pathologist, stressed, this is clearly an example of a homicide, or the person had blatant disregard for life. That's a stronger quote. If you use a verb like noted, indicated, observed, and so on, that's neutral. Now, if you use inferred, implied, suggested, that's a little bit weaker. So that's the difference there. And the other point that I wanted to tell you, when you write, if you want to take out a little bit of information from what the person said, and you do that, you can use like 3 ellipsis dots. Or if the person's commenting and you want to take out one or more complete sentences, then you use 4 ellipsis dots to do that. And then the other point is, if you ever want to add your own words to a quote, then you use the square brackets, which is right next to the letter P on the keyboard. So that's just common points, but I just wanted to mention those to you. So that's basically what I wanted to cover. The only other point that I wanted to mention to you is, in this class, we're going to practice asking questions or writing questions and so on. And it's important how you say something. You can use open-ended questions, or you can use closed-ended questions. Open-ended questions are a good way to start out, as far as, tell me about your relationship with your girlfriend. That's a good open-ended question as far as that goes. What kind of person would you say your neighbor is? And you could start from there. And then closed-ended questions are just like yes or no. Were you at the bar at midnight on the night of September 21st, 2012? Yes or no? Or on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you dislike this person, or whatever. And you can do that so it limits the options as far as that goes. But just be careful that when you ask questions, not to ask leading questions. Would you say Michael Ritzik is a jerk? Would you say he's one of the worst neighbors you've ever had? Be careful as far as asking leading questions, because people say, well, they were leading me in a particular direction. You can let the person just answer as far as that goes. And really, when you're talking to someone, whether you're interviewing them or if you're interrogating them, which is more criminal related, basically, you are just having a conversation. You just are talking to them, and you don't have to yell and scream and pound on the table. At a certain point, it might have to get to that, but I mean, you just want to have a conversation and talk to the person. So I think I've covered enough, but the biggest thing, like I said, was our textbook for the class. So thank you, and have a good week.